So great turnout, wonderful. Welcome to the much anticipated investor session. So I'm going to start off with thanks, and I'm not going to be long with the thanks. I'm going to give one set of thanks, and that's to Rita for getting us good weather today. So that's really appreciate that. If you get a chance, it's going to be 25 degrees outside and sunshine, so try and get outside and photosynthesize a bit. Right, so we've got a fantastic panel here. I'm sure everyone's really excited to hear from the investors, to understand what's going on, and to try and interpret some of the things that are happening around the world. But before we really dive in, I'm going to ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about them, and then I'd like you also to say, what do you think, or how do you look at advanced therapies? What do you classify as an advanced therapy in your investment thesis? Lucia, being the most beautiful, wonderful lady here, we start with you.
That's very easy to be the most beautiful one in this session. So thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. So my name is Lucia Faccio. I work for Sofinnova Partners, that is a European investment firm with 50 years of history investing in the life science. We have 7 different strategies of investments through the different stages of development of companies, and we manage 4 billion of assets. Specifically, I work in the Sofinnova Teleton strategy. That is the only strategy within Sofinnova that has a geographical focus. So we invest 100% in Italy, early stage, because in Italy there is amazing research, specifically in the advanced therapies sector. And we are called Sofinnova Teleton because we have a strategic partnership with Fondazione Teleton, an Italian charity with more than 30 years of history that has been funding research in Italy to develop treatments for genetic disorders. So given this strategic partnership, we also have quite an interest in investing in the space. So advanced therapies takes more or less 50% of our portfolio companies. And with this, I mean gene therapy approaches, gene editing, gene therapy through different kind of platforms, lenti, AAV, and epigenetic silencing. And what we like, but we don't yet have an investment on that, is also any RNA therapeutics. So this is how I would like to define ATMPs and the interest of Sofinnova Teleton in this space.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim.
Yeah, welcome everyone, and thanks to the organizers for organizing a fantastic meeting. My name is Tim Lohoff. I'm a senior associate with Forbion, one of the largest European life science investors, with currently just over 5 billion euros assets under management. And we have an exclusive focus on investing in therapeutics, while in that space are agnostic to therapeutic areas and modalities. However, we have a long-standing commitment in history in investing in advanced therapies. We have been among the founding investors in Unicure, Bluebird, and other early pioneers in the field, and continue to do so with 8 recent investments in the last 3 years in the advanced therapies, out of which 5 have been in the viral gene therapy space, spanning ophthalmology, renal diseases, as well as CNS application, and also having investments in vivo cell therapy plays, but also gene editing companies, both on the DNA editing side as well as RNA editing side. Myself, I've been involved in quite a few of this recent investment, serving on the board as an observer of 3 of those companies. One is here present in the room today, Avantgarde Bio, where we actually invested together with Sofinnova Teleton. So a great example of great European science bridging to the clinic and really focusing on curing blindness in patients with inherited retinal diseases. In addition to that, I'm involved in Seamless Therapeutic, a recombinase-based gene editing company, as well as ERNA, which is an RNA editing company with technology out of Tübingen, but located in the US. So Sven, to your question, I think at Forbion and me specifically, we define advanced therapy quite broadly in two buckets. One is gene therapy, which we define as both non-viral and viral gene replacement therapy, as well as gene editing approaches, which I just have mentioned, two flavors of, as well as RNA interference technologies. And then the second bucket is more centered around cell-based product, an area where we have taken a more conservative stand, so we are playing more in the gene therapy space as a fund.
Thank you very much. Ahmed.
Yeah, thank you very much already for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here in Rome, and I would like to enjoy better weather, the next days, so to feel Rome. So just already to give a background of myself, I'm a physician by training. And really, as you see, that the most important for me is patients already. We'd like to realize, a kind of therapy that find solution for unmet medical needs. So this is the core that we are looking at. Of course, I'm here with the elite already, panel. So that's why we are new already in the area of investment in life sciences. So just to give background about the family. The family office is one of the biggest family offices in Saudi Arabia. And really we are investors in a lot of already areas like energy, electricity and the power. And we would like to be disruptive in the area of life sciences and to be among the catalysts of the ecosystem in the region. We, it's usually as a history already in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. This is not, a kind of, sweet spots because, you need to know name of the game for this area. So, and we are under the umbrella of National Biotechnology Strategy today announced by the government to move towards already that. Most of people, when they think about Middle East, they think about government. But actually the most important economy for the private is family offices. So I have been already, working with the family already to find out, that kind of solutions for patients. So it is not emotional, but it's part of, contribution. And of course, already looking for, to understand, what we can do in this new area for life sciences. So back to your point about, the definition of advanced therapy. Advanced therapy for me, for us, it's agnostic, for the technology. Yes, we understand already now, and we have, good, professional people already that can evaluate already, the science. But the most important are therapy areas. We're talking about Middle East in specific, we are talking about consanguinity, and we have more than 900 already genetic disorders. So you can imagine already from our side, what is the importance of gene therapy in specific, because it will answer already, a lot of already, problems, devastating disease in our area. So in this case, what are our sweet spot? So for the investment, so again, already our strategy is very simple. We would like already to bring already the service providers for the services for cell and gene therapy already in the region, and while investing in assets. And you're talking assets, you need already to do it in phases. Just already it's filling the pipeline. That's why we would like to focus on therapy areas rather than already the technology, while consolidating all the technology to to serve the services already in Saudi Arabia.
Great, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Owen, over to you.
Awesome. So first of all, thank you to the organizers for this conference invitation, also such a great energy around the room. It's actually a breath of fresh air in what is a tough time for our space. So I'm Owen Smith. I'm a partner at Forbion Capital. We're based in the UK and can invest fairly globally. So UK, I still count that as Europe in my head. Europe and the US sort of form the core areas that we invest to by geography. We typically focus on early stage investing, so we do company formation, seed, series A and B, investments into what we sort of call the advanced therapies and emerging modalities space. To us, that's a fairly broad mindset, and obviously gene and cell therapy form a key part of that definition of our investment remit. But we sort of broaden that to things which we like to think you should be thinking about patient 10,000 from day one, rather than thinking, can we get into the clinic, get a signal, and then figure out how we make it and scale it. So most of what we do is sort of unified by that complexity. So difficult to make, difficult to think about preclinically, often creating the assays and the pathway into human studies, and then post-authorization thinking about marketing strategies which have to sort of differ from normal. So beyond gene and cell therapy, we're also investing into RNA medicine and targeted approaches, things like oncolytic viruses, bispecifics, heterobifunctionals, and molecular glues. We tend to play a fairly active role in our portfolio companies. We're working with 15 actively across our second and third funds at the moment. Myself, I'm working with 6 companies, 2 of whom are AAV gene therapy companies, Sparing Vision and S3 Bio, also sitting on the board of a clinical cell therapy company in the US, March Bio.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And so just a very brief introduction to myself. My name is Sven, and I'm a partner with Saisei Ventures. And so Saisei Ventures is a boutique VC focused on investing out of technology in Japan. So about 60% of our investments are from Japan or Japan-based technologies. Much like Forbion, we invest very early. We do a lot of company formation, but we focus only on cell and gene therapy therapeutics. So we don't go down ADCs or large molecules or anything like that. Really, the focus there is on taking really cool, amazing technology and science that's in Japan. Sadly, their entrepreneurial environment is not exactly the same as we see in Europe and the US. And so our focus there is really bringing Western expertise in to leverage growth and development within those companies. So that's a little bit about that. So you can see from the different organizations here, VCs are all very, very different. Different focus, be it geographic, therapeutic, stage of investment. And so it's really important that you get to know your VCs and you understand who it is that you're speaking to. And this is something that I'm going to sort of emphasize as we go forward. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of things, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. And that's the global economic, macroeconomic environment. So, you know, we've all been living through the last few weeks and months, and it's a little bit crazy in the markets out there, and we've seen massive swings. The XBI has gone down from 97, 98 into late 60s, early 70s. Things are just really mad. There's no real end in sight. We might be having tariffs in the future. What are you guys advising your clients? What are you advising your portfolio companies to do? Should they all move to America now and create their manufacturing facilities there? Should they stay away? What are you advising them? Who wants to start?
Well,
Owen.
Thanks, everyone.
Owen, let's start with you.
Thanks. Yeah. The eyes staring at me there really left me in a corner. So look, it's a difficult situation to navigate. I think everyone in the room is no stranger to the fact that when there's uncertainty, biotech is affected disproportionately, as is the wider healthcare space. You've got 2 ways of looking at things. On the portfolio side, so companies we've actively investing, I'm spending a lot of time with management, sort of understanding where we are with runway and sort of our ability to continue executing on a strategy. The reality is we fund businesses to inflection points. Those are points where we think a company can either re-raise or where we think there's a material chance we can seek a new partner for a program, whether that be through an acquisition, or we look to transition to the public markets to bring in new financing. The uncertainty in the US has sort of got us all scratching our heads. I think everyone is probably aware that there are very few initial public offerings happening on any market right now. So a financing event through an IPO isn't really open to businesses, and I think the piece we're keen to understand, and there's still awaiting any news from the US, is the implication of tariffs, terrible decision, on pharma companies before we sort of understand what appetite there will be to continue or even engage in an acquisition conversation. Pharma share prices declining as a result of smaller margins, reduced dividends, will reduce free capital. It will reduce the amount that businesses will spend on research, and for better or worse, biotech is the research part for a number of pharma companies. So I think it's a difficult time, and so I'm encouraging my portfolio companies to be efficient with capital, focus on what's essential, That's typically a lead or a co-lead program. Continue to have dialogue with potential acquirers and partners for other assets and other programs. Non-dilutive funding is continuing to be available, particularly in Europe, so we've sort of placed a bigger emphasis on that, and just hold the course. The reality is, I think most biotechs who are funded will continue into next year and then hope that the market is a little bit more supportive, and I think through Q4 this year, hopefully things will start to get better. As for prospective investee companies, I think it's actually refreshing how many CEOs are keeping abreast of the real world and saying, look, we know you're probably in a position where you're trying to get your head around what's going on in the world as well as we are. We are going to be doing a raise, but we're aware that we need to wait until later in the year when we will have certainty on what we need to raise to get to the right milestone and move forward. So I think that's actually been positive and quite refreshing, especially from the people I've spoken to in this room.
Great. Ahmed.
I think the positive part of this is about the area for investment. I mean that it is pre-IPO. This is already a kind of, if you are holding good science already the time for early stage rather than only post-IPO. We faced the hits already for the enlisted companies, which is expected. I mean that as entrepreneur and as we are part of the entrepreneurship already world, agility is required. And nothing already is constant in the world. So with such changes, we need already to focus on good science in the early stages, support them, because at the end of the day, it will reach for the patients. In addition to, at the end of the day, we start already and kick off the science. Nothing will stop it already. So it's a surge. Even already if something already hiccups, but at the end of the day, it will reach for a point. The most important is how to deploy all already the ecosystem and not look from investment point of view. We have patient advocacy. We have a lot of collaboration and the coordination. We have globalization as well. There are other markets we are seeing here already in the Middle East. For instance, we can already support that as a part of for reaching our patients as well. So the most important is to understand already the culture now, because this is another challenge. Now, at the past, you are looking only, on the own circle already for the raising funds from US and from Europe. Today, you need to think globally from investment point of view. And I saw a lot of, kind of first movers really coming to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia, UAE, Gulf countries to look at that. But the most important, they have to, just already, kind of adjust already the setup, for the difference, because we just start already the business for life sciences. So this is already another thing that I can see that we can offer for the companies to keep already, the business and the science, moving.
Tim, thoughts from you?
Yeah, maybe not to repeat what already has been said. I think fair to say that we stress as a company to our companies that we're in that together. No one has a crystal ball in front of them. But one thing we can be certain about is looking at the end product, which is like developing treatments for patients, and hopefully positive data overrule all of the uncertainties that are out there. However, I must say times are a bit more challenging for early stage companies that are in discovery and really have a long way to come to this catalyst, which is typically clinical data in this environment. So there we really say, as Owen already pointed out, to make sure you have your capital strategy really focused on one product with a clear unmet need and a path forward that you can, in the time frame of the investment period, can actually achieve meaningful catalyst, which ultimately hopefully also brings you in time frames when markets are in a different state.
So just to sum up, first of all, we were trained. We are coming out from years that have been quite difficult also in the past. So let's put it in this way. We are prepared to face difficult situations. Definitely, one point is to have companies that are developing products for which there is a need. And where the innovation and the adding value is clear. At the same time, being very financial safe is very important. And in Europe, I have to say that there are some interesting initiatives in terms of grant and non-dilutive funding that can help companies. Definitely, the other thing is to build a syndicate that is supporting the company with this long-term view. Because definitely exits are not going to happen before a clinical stage. So it's important for both companies and investors to think how the table, how the people that is around the table is going to support and to move innovation for the purpose of obviously developing then a therapies for patients that are also commercially interesting and viable.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So I think, maybe to try and sum up, it's a case of, understand what's happening, but control your space. And we, as therapeutic developers, cannot always control what's happening in the world's political stage. We can't always control what's happening in the global finance stage, but we can control how we develop therapies for patients, how we put patients at the front of everything we do, how we ensure that good science is done. And so I think it's continuing with that. And then bringing back that theme of understand and working with your investors. It's understanding having the right investors, as these folks have just said, that will be able to help you and support you and guide you so that when the times are tough, which we all know they are, that they can help you to think about how do you get through to the next stage when you can actually raise money when things start improving. So it's developing that relationship. So thinking about relationships and thinking about guidance, we've also seen some massive changes within the FDA, with Peter Marks leaving and a number of people, up to a third of the FDA being given their walking papers. There are lots of stories out there about how this is going to cause a collapse in the ability to regulate, and this, that, and the next thing. And as we know, the general press loves a bit of scaremongering. What is it? How is it that you guys are thinking about this? Have any of your companies had an experience with the FDA in the last few weeks that you can talk to? And what are you thinking about when you discuss with your clients and your portfolio companies about the FDA versus the EMA, versus the MHRA, versus the PMDA? How are you thinking about how things are developing? Who wants to start? Lucia, you look ready to go.
Okay. No, what I can say is that none of our companies for the moment had yet experienced any real problem with FDA. Having said that, being most of our companies based in, all our portfolio companies based in Europe, we obviously take a double approach by working both with EMA and FDA, and also with MHRA. The thing is, the suggestion that I feel I would give to the companies is to keep communication and conversation open, so that at least you know when the problems will arrive. It won't be hitting all of a surprise. And being open in terms of differentiating, the regulatory strategy. Having said that, these are the two main markets, UK, EMA, and FDA. So there will be a need to explore maybe other solutions that at least as per my experience, are not yet very well defined. So I just suggest keeping, communication and conversation open.
Okay, great. Tim?
Yeah, I think the same theme that we discussed before here applies. I think we certainly need to be aware of all the changes in the FDA. I think we don't have clarity on how it will play out. I mean, certainly one of the biggest advocates of the space has left the agency, which is never a great circumstance, but as just pointed out, I think we always take regulatory as a long-term view from the start of our investment, even early preclinical. We always thinking about regulatory pathways that are robust and should give the company the ability to really focus on the science and use the regulatory strategy as an enabling tool towards actually thriving. I think in terms of examples of companies recently interacted with regulators, my experience is more on the European side, both MHRA as well as the German regulators, the Paul-Ehrlich Institute, has been extremely supportive in finding strategies to enable advanced therapies, may it be gene therapies or RNA interference approaches, which often from our experience standpoints, even before the change, were favorable, at least for early trial setups, to start clinical development in Europe. You have sometimes the ability to dose escalate quicker and really come to meaningful data in a time frame that again aligns with investment horizons. And I think we certainly are eyes wide open looking at regulatory paths outside of Europe and the US. I think Australia is a known region where a lot of activity goes, but I'm sure Ahmed can also say more about the Middle East as a potential regulatory ground.
Ahmed.
Yep. So, I mean that we are 3 phases. I mean, if you'd like to expedite, you are to look for the whole process, not only one step. So we have already the clinical development, the regulatory, and the reimbursement. So, I mean, what we cannot control, maybe already we can control for others, pieces of the process. So for the regulatory, I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, Gulf countries, we following a stringent regulatory authorities pathway. I mean that the US FDA, MHRA, and the EMA, okay, and whatever any one of them, we are okay. And really already immediately without anything, already without any confirmatory clinical trial, you can launch the product already in the market. So back to the point about how to help the companies for from bench to already to patients. So for the reimbursement part, I'd like everybody knows that already KSJV, for instance, the first 2 patients infused were one in Saudi and one in Bahrain in the region. So I'm talking about the reimbursement because actually there is a reimbursement with a strong infrastructure. So I mean that it would present already a very good opportunity for gene therapy companies. Looking for already the clinical development, because we have the infrastructure, we are part of the market access, a program already for the first markets to access because of the reimbursement. What I would like to say, we can expedite clinical trials already, and the enrollment for reaching for the patients, in the region. So by such, we can already getting time already. If there are other steps, we are going to miss time. So the point here, we have the patient because, for instance, sickle cell disease, you can imagine patient eligible already for, for gene therapy, already 140K patients. So I mean that 140K patients, huge number if compared with others. For SME, for SMA, number of patients already in the region in Saudi Arabia is longer, is bigger than the rest of the world. I mean that because we have almost as a rule of thumb already, we have 10 times than already the US already instance. So if you do the math, the absolute number in Saudi Arabia already and in the region is equal to the number in the US. So, I mean, we can have already, and share already to help the companies already to reach its goal. Whatsoever already, what we can manage, we can already help on that.
Okay, great. Owen, you've had some experience with the FDA recently.
Yeah, I think I'll start with the positive. I'm working with 2 companies, Inspiring Vision and March Bio, who are working through clinical studies in the US, ongoing conversations with the FDA have sort of continued at a sort of reasonable cadence. There's still answers coming back to questions, and so it's clear the lights are on. Which, if you are in some conversations, there is a view that the FDA isn't operating. My experience, at least through the portfolio companies I'm working with, is that the FDA is continuing. Nonetheless, I do think the position of the FDA has been damaged in recent months. The turnover of staff is incredibly unhelpful, the loss of expertise, fundamentally challenging. And when we're developing drugs, it takes a long time, as everyone in this room knows well. And it's not something that overnight decisions and about turns on a regulatory framework are particularly helpful for. So long term, at least during the next 3 or 4 years, I expect you'll see more and more biotechs explore more stable jurisdictions to run clinical studies. Europe has a very strong position. The MHRA still has a good standing globally and are trying to and I think have tried to find a position which is somewhere between the US and European systems. And I think both frameworks are extremely favorable for biotechs here in Europe. And I think you'll see in time a number of US companies actually value the robustness and stability of those regulators. Beyond that, I think Australia for a number of years has stood out. The TGA have done a very good job in enabling first-in-man studies, particularly for cell and gene therapies, and I think that will continue. But we're also seeing more and more, especially since China has taken a leadership position in the biotech world of clinical studies happening there in the first instance due to, funnily enough, more stability in the regulation and actually a very high standard. You look at the acquisition of Esbiotech, not a portfolio company, so not a plug, but they run their first clinical study in China, and my understanding is that that was a very productive experience for that company. So I think what we will see is more and more geographic diversity in clinical studies as companies, executives and founders want to take drugs to patients. They want to bring things to market, and you need a stable regulator to do that.
Okay, great. So we've moved sort of on to also some of the early stage thinking there. I think, we have experience with 2 Japanese companies that are engaging with the regulators, one in looking at pivotal study. And I have to say they've been really, really positive. They say that the FDA responses have been a little delayed, but they are still very thoughtful, very detailed, and very, very useful. We've also had an early company that's Japan-based, but is doing their first time in human study in the US, and they're manufacturing in the US, and they've also had very positive interactions. So I think, we need to be very pragmatic in thinking about how the regulators are changing. The regulators are changing, the regulations haven't changed yet. And so I think, we need to be pragmatic and think about this and find ways to be able to support the folks working in the FDA, because I think their lives are substantially worse than ours at the moment. Right, before we carry on, I want to open this up to questions, because I know there are lots of therapy developers in the audience that have got lots of questions for our VC panel. So does anyone have any burning questions? Anything you'd like to stump the panel with? This is your chance. Speak up now or forever hold your peace. Nobody out there? Yes, we have someone in the front and then we have someone over there. Do we have a roving microphone? Yes. Jancy's coming with that.
Hi, thank you very much for all the contributions, appreciate it. I'm the CEO of a company developing tissue therapy, so not in the gene space, not in the strictly stringent cell therapy space, even though the product has cells and it's an autologous product, and we are in late stage, so we are in phase 3. And the question is mostly to Ahmed. I mean, I've been in touch with different stakeholders in Saudi. I do have an interesting approach for Saudi and the region around, because it's a product, I think, which has a lot of needs in those areas of the world. And the question is, is there any support that maybe your institution or others you may know could give me to effectively actually start a center of excellence to serve the region and beyond? Is that something that your family office or others have in mind, also to internalize certain technologies like those which have been developed purely in Europe, in my case, to really open up to the best products for the region? And what's the vision for that?
Okay, so thank you for the question, and really I'm happy already to talk with you and giving the details, because every project is different, in elements. The point here, just already, two things. General thought, yes, we need that, because we are building things already, now from scratch, and we need, this kind of co-development, sincere partnership, long-term, not transactional, by the way. We met a lot of, people, they're coming for transaction. That's why it changed the picture that I told, some of the folks that it may kind of mutate already, the communication style. So now already, it's very important really to, my advice to have a presence already there. I mean, if you can already be there for a long time, because you need to build the trust. and educate already the system. And the people there, they are, giving you already, will give you all the attention, or, listening if there is something already, that works well, and if it's something already that built to stay. So this is number one. Number two, understand the culture, because, if you build this trust, once you get the trust, no way back. So it is one way. It's like already but so it needs time. If you cannot do it yourself, select a kind of local partner, with a profile that can fit with your culture to feel comfort already, and you can, play together already how to find the opportunities. The ecosystem is, that's why I'm not surprised about things happening already all over the world for change, because the ecosystem, because it's at nascence, grasping idea to reality, this kind of landing is difficult. So that's why I see a lot of changes for, for leadership, but I mean that before, big things, a lot of mess behind before. So, I'm happy already to support, or, especially if you are close to commercialization at late stage. This means that we can anchor something already, that can be seen and encourage others. So it's like dominoes effect already in Saudi. Once you start, everybody will come to you already and to support you. I hope that I answer your question. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Ahmed. Richard.
Thanks, Sven. Over here, I know when you're on stage, you can't see anything out here. Wow, lights show up. Richard Wilson from Stellus. Thanks for the chance to ask questions. Half-baked idea, so run with me a bit here. And apologies to my US-based venture capital friends, but I'm curious, picking up on this theme, since this is a panel of folks looking at from a global investment perspective, it feels to me as though the current moment is definitely causing the US venture system to kind of inhale a bit and say, all right, what's this going to mean? Where are we going? We're talking a lot about sensing the environment and trying to perceive the shifting sands of where the world is going. I'm curious, as representatives of the kind of ex-US investment community, what are you guys thinking about in terms of, is this an opportunity to go into the US more, to actually think about, is there an opportunity to fund US companies now in a way that maybe allows the rest of the world to, take some of that pie, to put it bluntly?
Some interesting thoughts there. Who's thinking about going in and pillaging some US companies?
I can make a start. So Forbion also has a Boston office, so I think we have a fundamental global view, but certainly our heritage and quite strong commitment on the European ground. I think one of the reasons for investing in Europe always has been arbitrage of price. And to an extent, in this current environment, you can certainly argue that there's more price pressure in the US, access to capital is restricted, and they need to look a bit more broadly on the capital market. I would say the fundamentals of investment are not changed. I mean, ultimately, we look at the end product. I mean, what is the commercial potential and what is the upside of an investment? I mean, there's certainly opportunities for long-term investors, which we all at this panel are, where you really have the ability to sit through this valley of like depreciation. But I would say this is really like a private market-focused view. I think on the public market, there's certainly more room to become active in companies which are late stage. And what I mean by that is, a few years back, a positive phase 2 study would make you immediately a multi-billion company, falling out of our investment focus even on the public side. So I think it opens a bit the search radius, but I think the investment principles remain quite similar.
Lucia, Owen, any thoughts?
So from my perspective, half the portfolio that I'm working with are in the US already. Some of those businesses we've moved to the US. A number have been established there, as it's the right place to build the business. I think the reality is it'll net out that things will stay the same. I think a number of US investors who are closer to home will continue to have what seems a prevailing view to me, that they would like to make investments in US companies where they have more certainty on the path forward. So you may see less US investment into European, UK, Japanese companies. Nonetheless, I think there is an adage that there is a US footprint that will be established for most companies in the space. I think the only real thinking that will come into companies' development decision making will be where do we do our scale up on our manufacturing. It may be that there is an extra tick in the US column as a result of everything that's come out in the coming weeks, but the reality is we tend to build biotechs in the right place where the right talent is and the right expertise, skill set is to take it forward through preclinical development into the clinic. As you have a slight view that Europe has lost the valuation arbitrage point over the last 3 or 4 years. I think it's sort of been well rewarded as there has been an influx of US investors. So from an investment perspective, I think Europe has an increasing attractiveness to me, but we will see how things sort of play out in the coming years.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I would also say that I think what we've seen, to Tim's point, valuations have generally come down since COVID, and a lot of that sort of frothiness is out of the system. And there is a lot more thought going into diligence and investing in companies, but we still see that Europe and other countries, Japan, many of the, Australia, those places, your cost of running a company is probably less. So you can get more for your buck. The downside is a lot of the talent is sitting in the US and is very, very overpriced for very early stage companies. So it's a case of you have to figure out what is best for you and your company at the right time. So let's go. There was a question right at the back in the dark there.
Sounds sinister.
Thank you. So my name is Rachel Diamond. I'm a CEO, co-founder and CEO of a company developing technology in the mitochondrial therapy space. And I just wanted to also to highlight, in terms of how you think about it, because with all due respect to global challenges, and we all understand the environment, but this is a time for opportunities, and looking closely at the opportunities can actually turn up to be a very good time to start and also to support the early stage community, which is struggling at these present times. And maybe to the point of this meeting, I have to say that personally, my request for meetings was not responded by any of the people sitting here in the panel. So just to, my apologies for sharing the frustration of fundraising in this present time. But yes, I think that there is a gap that is not being addressed in terms of being able to fund early stage biotech as promising and as it may be.
Great point. Thank you very much. I think that's really very, very useful to hear. I think it's also, I'm going to ask Owen to respond to that, because I think he said he was keen on it. But there are a lot more companies out there that we have the ability to invest in. So Owen, over to you.
Yeah, no, I think the things they haven't really naturally come out of questions. I think things that I would sort of say, just to put a bit of context in. There's a couple of things. I think the last 2 or 3 months have been challenging, and all venture funds run a portfolio model where we sort of look at what the cash needs of a business will be to take it to what we think is the inflection or exit point. And I think the reality is, in the last 3 months, what was initially forecast as a portfolio in 2020, 2021, 2 and 3 has got more needy in terms of cash requirement. Holding periods have got longer. So I think the reality is most funds will probably do less investments than they initially thought they were going to do, especially if they closed in 23 or 24. We closed our current fund in 2023, so we're looking at how we can best support the companies we've invested in. And then that takes a period of time. I'm working with 3 preclinical companies in Via Nortis, who I think are here in the room, Estuary Bio, and NTAP Bio, all of whom are really early stage and some work from the clinic. So really working with those businesses to understand their cash needs. Then the next piece is to sort of look at where we can make new investments. We're in year 3 of a fund. So for the next 3 or 4 years, we're looking to sort of generate data and then begin an exit period. So for us, we're probably not in the position where we're going to make the earlier investments in terms of the seed or Series A or company formation investments. Those have happened in year 1 and 2 of the fund. We're now sort of moving on to sort of more later stage investments, but we're sort of also in the process of raising our next fund, which we'll be raising next year, and that will start to make early investments. So I think one thing I would say is to sort of think about the staging where people are in the fund, and sort of try to tally it up. And it's always good to ask an investor that question: where are you in the fund? What are you sort of looking for to fill out the portfolio? Are you right at the beginning? Are you in year 1, 2, or 3? When's the best time for us to engage? On the partnering system, that's my bad. Apologies. I'm happy to speak after this.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry we have run out of time. Jeff, come and grab us afterwards, because I know you really want to ask a question. I'm going to finish off very, very quickly. The one piece of advice you would give to any entrepreneur, CEO, startup here today. Lucia, go.
Well, I would say focus very much on what is your product and try to bring it to a proof of concept and really get the best team that would allow you to achieve that result. Because at the end, every investment is based on technology, but an amazing technology without the proper team will never get where you want to bring it.
Tim, one piece of advice.
Difficult to add anything after these wise words, but I would certainly say stay passionate. I think it's a time where we really need to see the drive of any stakeholder in the value chain, entrepreneurs, service providers, regulators, to really have the joint vision of that we go through this period as a group.
Ahmed.
I'm having this kind of futuristic advice, so think out of the box. As we said always, the world after COVID is not the same. This is true, and every year already we add, a truth over already this fact. So the routes for investments are different. For the startup, move already and look, for the big picture rather than already know all the available resources. There are a lot of resources beyond you can imagine.
Owen, last piece of advice.
Thanks, no pressure. So I guess be prepared. I think the two things would be to sort of understand who your venture partner you're looking to work with are, where they are in their fund, what their passions are. Sometimes it is a case of it is us and not you. And the other one is scenario plan, which builds on the be prepared. You will go out with an offering, be prepared to answer the questions of by the metric of time, stage, and cash.
Great, thank you. So please join me in thanking the panelists, and we'll be at the back if anyone wants to harass anyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.